Hi.
Hi, are you sure this course is just for 2499?
Yes, and you know this is the only course with this expertise across the world.
No way!
Yes, way. Don't delay. Enroll now.
Geeks learning together.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Geeks for Geeks. My name is Muskan Agarwal, and today we are here with another, webinar with of interview experience series. So we have Mayank with us today. He is going to share about his interview experience at Google, and I can see a lot of people were excited about it. There were so many comments before even the webinar started. So yes, I would quickly like to add Mayank to the stream, but before that, please confirm me in the comment section if I'm perfectly visible and audible. I do not want any network glitches in this webinar. Yeah, just send me a thumbs up if I am perfectly visible and audible so that I can quickly add Mayank to the stream. Yes. Also, guys, keep your questions ready. So, like starting में, I'll ask my questions, whatever I have whatever I have prepared, and after that, I will start taking up your questions. So maybe your questions might be missed in the start, but please make sure to send all your questions in the ending of the webinar, like after half an hour or something. So I will try to take all the good questions that are there. Yes. Cool. So I'm perfectly audible and visible. You guys have confirmed. Yes, so I'll quickly add Mayank to the stream now. Hi, Mayank.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Shant.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me here. And yeah,
Yeah. It is a pleasure to have you here. Also, I can see that a lot of people must have already seen from the thumbnail that what this webinar is about. Who are you? But then too, for the audience, can you quickly tell us a brief introduction about yourself?
yes, sure thing. So, my name is Kumar Mayank. I graduated from Cochin University. Right now, I'm working as a strategic cloud engineer under infrastructure team at Google. And I have overall around 3.5 years of experience in IT. And from the start itself, I have been into DevOps profile. I started off my journey as a DevOps intern and then getting into DevOps engineer profile full time. And then I switched over to site reliability engineering role. And then I got an opportunity with Google at, working as strategic cloud engineer.
Your role is different from that of an SD, as I can see. Like job profile is different, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that is
So,
also very interesting.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Also, Mayank, can you share about your coding journey? Like, when did you start coding, and what interested you the most and everything? Was it from school only, or did you, start in college, or what is it about?
For me, I would say school. So I took C++ as my additional subject for plus one and plus two, 11th and 12th standard. So that's where my curiosity came in, basically. So it all started off from there. Uh, Coming into college, there were a lot of coding societies and all where people used to come and code, talk about various competitive coding and all. I mean, if I'm completely honest, I tried. I mean, very first time I started off with, I think Google Kickstart, that coding challenge. That was my very first one, and I thought, hey, I have couple of years of coding experience back in school. It would be easy, but completely it was not. uh, and so it has the thing about computer science. So most people think like, okay, getting into computer science, it's all about software engineering, but there are lot of various other streams and verticals that you can explore computer science around with. And for me, eventually cloud computing got my interest in, like I was amazed by the by the process of pulling up a virtual machines within seconds, and whatever requirement you need 16 CPUs and 32 GB of RAM and whatnot. I mean, you ask for the specification, it will be up within seconds, ready to use. And that what fascinated me, like, at the very start. And I was like, okay, this is something that I need to
Hmm.
further look into. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's where my journey started.
Yeah, actually, I absolutely agree with you. Like most of the people, even when I see around me, they're not even aware of the different fields that are there in tech itself. Like you told
Exactly.
that you're a like your profile is very different. You are a DevOps. You were a DevOps engineer. Then you explore different profiles. But 90% of the people think that SD is the only way to go. You become an SD and that is it.
Oh,
So yeah, maybe tech interests them, but SD becoming an SD is not what actually interests them, and then they just lose their way or something. So definitely we should
exactly.
explore different fields in tech as well.
Yep, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Also about your school journey, I think back then there was not so much coding culture in school, but now I can see kids from class 7th, 8th itself, somebody's a data engineer in class 7th or 8th only, somebody's making apps in class 6th, and it's so overwhelming to see. And I'm actually happy that, the coding culture is starting from the school itself.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, back then, we used to work on, I guess, Q Basic, and
Hmm.
there was this program called
CBSE.
Logo. Yeah, Logo, where you used to write, simple loop statement, FD1, RT1, repeat 360, and it would make a circle.
Right.
So
I still remember my first statement that got compiled. I showed it to all my friends. Let's see, my code got compiled. It was A plus B. I was like so happy about it.
yeah, I mean, coding a simple calculator, simple addition and subtraction, like, oh my god, this is happening. I did that.
Right.
And
Also,
that's where my one of something that pulled me in was to visualize the code that I write.
right.
you know so whenever I'm writing something, I'm trying to visualize it in my head, like, okay, this is something, what it needs to be, what it how it would work, and how it would look like. So I started off with Android Studio, Android apps development. And I mean, back in college, I did some projects with it within that. uh, but then I went into cloud computing. So there's actually a story behind it. So one fine summer break, I mean, me and my roommate were discussing, like, hey, what are your internship plans and all. And I was like, hey man, I don't have anything. And played, and like, hey, I have an opportunity, you want to. So he was from Rajasthan, and I had never been to Rajasthan before. So he was like, hey, you want to travel back to Jaipur and explore some opportunities there. And I was like, hey, why not? Sure, let's go. And it was just a fun plan to explore Rajasthan, and it turns out to be a life changing, you know, subject. I started off my internship with cloud computing over there, and it took my interest off.
You never know like where life will take you. So do not miss any opportunity. Like people think that this is a small company, I should not work here or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I can see a lot of comments. Guys, we will definitely take all your comments, after maybe 20 to 30 minutes. And yes, apart from that, the main title of this webinar is the interview rounds. Okay. So, can you firstly tell that how many interview rounds were there in Google, and then briefly describe each and every round that was there?
All right. So it was very similar to, if you have followed other interview panels, it was very similar to that of. But being an infrastructure profile, it is expected you don't have expert level of DSA. So all right, we can come on that later. So so the rounds that were for me were total of 4 rounds. One was road related knowledge, RRK, which Google calls it. The other was simple coding round. It was purely coding round. The third one was system design round, and the final one was Googliness round. So it all started with role related knowledge round. It had basic infrastructure level questions, like how things work on cloud side when you design a infrastructure for an organization, right? How infrastructure works at a production level. So basic questions from here and there. Other than that, for coding round, so that was where I was nervous. I was never into competitive coding, and my DSA was not very strong as such from the start. So I mean, the sole I mean, the nervous point was at the coding round itself for me, but the the recruiter assured me, like, for and us, for the infrastructure profile, for the DevOps profile, we don't usually code that much of algorithm. I mean, we do code, but we don't use that much of algorithm and data structure as such. And we are much into scripting rather than coding. So what happens with DevOps profile is, so let's say we use algorithm for time complexity, right? We need to reduce time as much as possible to make the code execute faster, right? But for infrastructure type deployment, where the time delays happens is on the infrastructure side. So let's say you want to spin up a virtual machine for your infrastructure, right? You wrote a code for it, but you need to wait for a couple of seconds or maybe a second to for the healthy status of that virtual machine that comes from the cloud, right? So over here, the time complexity side reduces from your hand to the cloud provider hand, right? So we don't usually concentrate on I mean, we do need, but I mean, it's all the basic level that you are aware of, how coding works and how code
Right.
works basically. So yep, the it was all, I mean, if I have to say, it was all lead code, medium and easy level questions.
Hmm.
um, it was not, I mean, I didn't find any hard level questions or as such from the lead code. Other than that, the main focus of the interview, I would say, was the system design round, which was the third round. And over there, I mean, that was a very interesting round for me. So it had lots of troubleshooting questions, and how, I mean, how would you manage infrastructure, and as such, like, in depth, the infrastructure in depth, the system design. And I think that's the main round for this particular role, because for this role you are supposed to work with a customer face, directly with the customer, help them understanding their infrastructure requirement and needs, and help them build solution for them, right? And yeah, and the very last round, which is there for, I think, all Google profiles, is googliness round. You just need to be googly enough, I guess.
So what is this last round about? It sounds really interesting, Google, like what is that? Is it an HR round or something else?
um Not exactly an HR round, I would say a hiring manager round as such. And it may and may not involve technical questions, uh, but it's more about how you handle your situation, how you, I mean, if you are put into a situation, either it be a pleasant situation, or either it be a some position that you are uncomfortable with, and how you respond to it at that very instance, right? So that's what they judge you about, or not judge you, but that's what they look into, I mean, how the person handles that particular situation. And yeah.
In Google, there is also, I think, like few interviewers, what do they do is like in the very starting, we have to tell something about ourselves that is, unique about ourselves. And it should not be technical or anything. It can be anything, like whatever quality you have. So yeah, this is also a very good start to an interview, maybe. It acts like an icebreaker between the interviewer and the student.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Apart from that, was there any, resume selection before the interview rounds or something like that?
um so here's the thing. So I got, I mean, um so the main problem for me before getting into Google was, how do I get the attention of these big MNCs, like the manga or the Fang, now Manga, uh, into get their attention to look into your profile, right? So,
Right.
I mean, to make the resume as much as presentable as possible, and what I mean by presentable is, so let's try to put yourself in the place of HRs, right? So as being an HR of of huge companies like Google, you would get thousands of resumes to look into. So you obviously want to stand out in that place, right? So what my strategy was to put my skills at very top, never to play bluff with your skills section. Mention what you know, and that's what I would recommend. Never play bluff with your skills. um, so yeah, put your skills at the very top right after your description, obviously, and after that mention all the projects that you have done, maybe some achievement that you may have, and then rest of the thing can follow after that, right? So if you want to quickly skim over a resume, you would look like, okay, these are the keywords or hot topics that I'm looking into and are suitable for this profile, right? So okay, all right, yeah, his profile matches with this job description. So yeah, yeah. And other one, uh, as you can say, hack or not a hack, but trick kind of that I followed, looking for relevant job links. So if you go into career side of any company, you would find a lot and lot of uh, job links, right, which may or may not be relevant as such, but yeah. So, and the very important or the first step is to find the active link in it, right? I mean, most of them are active, but which one is the most active link? So for that, how it worked for me was I used to look out for hashtags at LinkedIn, and I mean, that's how hashtags are basically, to push your post up to put out to as much as people can reach your post, right? So why don't we use, backtrack it, find a post, grab some hashtag that were used in it, and then backtrack to other job resources that are being posted on LinkedIn or any other social networking sites, and you can get hang of those. So those were some tricks that I followed to get on to active links that were posted on LinkedIn's and all.
Yes, definitely. Like this is a very interesting thing. Like I've never really thought about it, and it will definitely help me as well. I will use it. Yeah. Apart from that, just one second. Apart from that, the one thing that you mentioned about the job description and the resume, many students, what they do is they just make one resume and they will upload that in every profile, whether it is a data engineer profile, SD profile, they'll just upload that same resume in everything. I think you should not do that. Like your resume, few of the things should change depending on the company and the job description. I think that will help us.
Exactly. I mean, it's very important to read through the job description at first, to find the right job first and read through the job description. And if you feel, okay, I can do the job as it's describing, then put those
Hmm.
skills, every time you apply for a new job, try to align your resume with the job description as much as possible, so that the recruiters, anyone who is reviewing your resume, finds it more relevant to the job, rather than sometimes it may happen that you are suitable for that job, but your mentioned skill or the matching skills are written at a very bottom or to the very end of that skills section, and that may decrease the chance maybe. But yeah, make sure that before submitting a resume to any of the job description anywhere, update it as per the job description, and it can boost your profile a lot, I would say.
Yeah, because I think resume selection is the most difficult part from my personal experience. Also, I was like, "Bhai, resume select ho jaye, then everything is gonna be easy." But to cross
Exactly,
that
yeah.
hurdle is tough. Yes.
Exactly, yeah.
Apart from that, Mayank, what was your preparation strategy? As you told that DSA was not like a little bit tough for you. So, what was your preparation strategy? How did you prepare? Like, how long did it took for you, like from for preparing and everything?
All right. The preparing strategy was, I mean, if I'm completely honest, I didn't had any strategy as such. It was more of looking into fundamentals. So here's the very interesting question that I had at, I guess, couple of years back when I was being interviewed by LinkedIn for SRE position, I guess, and they asked me one very cool question like, what happens when you type www.linkedin.com and press enter? And I was hesitant to answer that question, and that blew my mind. Like, wait, I couldn't answer this completely, like, fluently. And that's where it struck me like, okay, I need to look into the basics of everything. So for me, being interviewed for SCE infrastructure, uh, so they don't, I mean, um, what can I say? So you don't have to know everything to the depth, but you should know the basics of how things work, right? So if you're asked, so I mean, there are lots and lots of resources out there which can help you with the stuff, but if you don't know what to look out for, is where you will get stuck and where you will, you know, consume most of the time, right? So look out for basic stuff. So for me, the infrastructure part, I was looking into the networking part of how network flows into a particular infrastructure. So let's say if you want to deploy an application, right, you can't just put it into a web server, I mean virtual machine, and put it out there on internet. It would be very dangerous to do that, being exposed to the internet. You need to put on various security components and all. You have to make your infrastructure resilient and high. You need to take care of a lot of things like HPA and high availability and everything. So yeah, so the very basic stuff, and it's not just for my profile, the infrastructure, whatever you are preparing for, right? And again, the job description comes in handy a lot. So whatever they mention in the job description, try to understand like how things work, like what is the different thing, but how things work with that particular term is a totally different thing, right? So try to explore more on how things work for that particular term. So that's how I prepared.
And I think similar thing goes for data structures as well. Like in some interviews, like people know how to use hash maps, how to implement it, but they do not know the internal working of hash maps. And this was a
Exactly.
question that was put up on me in an interview, and I was not very confident about the answer. So yes, interviews do ask about the working of a particular data structure as well, as Mayank said. Definitely. Also, I was curious to know, suppose there is an interview round and there was a question asked to us, and we do not know the answer to it. We do not know how to start, or we do not have any clue about it. So, did you face some similar situation where you were not able to answer any question?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, not just once, but I think couple of times, I guess, throughout the process. Um, so there was some time in there was a particular instance in which I interpreted the question totally into a different direction, and I started, explaining stuff and like, hey, this is how it's supposed to work, and this is how we can take this forward and all. Interviewer, was listening to me, and after I paused, he interrupted me like, wait a second, this is not what I asked. Like, I'm looking for a totally different thing, and he tried to explain me the question again. And so here's the thing. You must be understanding as much as the interviewer is understanding you. So for me it was more of uh, digging into the interviewer more. Like, if they ask me question, get prepared with follow up questions from your end. Like, okay, this is what you need, but what else you need? Like, what are the particular specification you would need it for, and is there a specific application you would need it, and stuff like that. Try to get information out of as much as information out of them, and this would not only help them understand like how you're trying to get into the depth, but it will also help you as well, how you're trying to uh, to get to a particular point, like, okay, this is something that I know and I can take this question off from here. And yep, try to break the question into different components and try to find as much information as you can for a particular question you have. And I think it was more important for me because it's going to be a customer facing role. So in a real life scenario, customer would come in with the needs, but it's your responsibility to dig in more, to get in with some more specific questions, to get in more information and insights what they need. So yeah, divide and conquer, I guess.
Definitely. Also, follow-up questions are so important. Like, I ask so many questions. At some time, I think that maybe the interviewer will get, irritated by the number of questions I ask. But honestly, they do not. They're looking for, students who are able to ask questions, right? Never assume anything, I think.
Exactly, never assume. That's a great line up. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that was actually one of the mistake that I did. I was giving an Amazon interview and I assumed that, the array must be sorted and everything. And I started solving the question. And then in the end, the interviewer told me that the array is not sorted. I was like, my approach will completely fail because of that. And I wasted some amount of time. So yeah, that was the learning.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, now maybe we can take few of the questions from the comment section. Guys, if you have already put up the question, maybe you can put it again so that it will be easy for me to take those and your questions will not be missed. Okay, so somebody has asked, what other than data structure do we have to do to get into Google?
Data structure. That's completely depends on the profile that you are chasing, that you are working on, basically. So if it's a SD, you would be expected to be knowing the in depth of data structure, I guess. Try solving. I mean, I'm not an expert for software SWE profiles, but speaking of my DevOps profile, I would say um, start off with the basics. Like, again, for me, the basic data structure, I got stuck. I mean, my personal experience was there was a moment I got stuck with a very basic operation of a dictionary in Python, right? And I was like, hey, I never did this with dictionary. I'm a little bit stuck. And later on, I followed and got that solved the other way around. But yeah, try to explore as much as you can the basic operation of how an array work within a your your preferred way of, or your preferred programming language, how list works, how set works, how dictionary works, basically. So that's the main key point. How get started with a programming language, I guess. And for me, it was more of into exploring other side of scripting as well. So in infrastructure, there is called something as infrastructure as a code. So I did some projects early in college using Terraform as well as Ansible, and those are, Terraform is infrastructure management tool, and Ansible is configuration management tool, and so that's all the basic scripting side works. And we also need to have some hands-on with Bash scripting and all. So overall, I would say if you're looking out for I mean DevOps profile, get your basics clear. That will help you a lot. Um, get into scripting languages. Get into some automations. Either it be with Jenkins or with some other tools and all. Yeah, yeah.
I think it will vary on the profile. Like the
Profile.
student, I
Yeah.
think mentioned the profile, so it will vary. Right. So apart from that, he has asked that after the on-site rounds, how long was the waiting time to hear back?
Um, it was around a week or a couple of
Hmm.
weeks, if I remember correctly. Um, so I mean, fair, to be honest, it was a very smooth interview process, and they accommodate all your requests. If you want to postpone your interview, and if you got something in between your interviews, you can straight away ask the recruiter, and they will help you out with those queries and all everything. So I think it was couple of weeks that I heard, and so at the very start when I got contacted with the recruiter, I had traveling plans the very next week, and, and I was going to a no network zone, and I was traveling to Jammu that time, and it was like, okay, I can't miss this opportunity. Who wants to miss, Google's opportunity? So I just asked them like, hey, can we postpone it to next week? And they were like very welcoming, like, okay, hey, no problem, whenever the time suits for you. So yep, yeah.
So then the next question is asked by me again that, and for the Googliness round, are the questions based on your resume, projects, or scenario based questions? Basically, is it technical, non-technical?
I would say both. So what I mean by both is, so being an infrastructure engineer, right, you may be put into a situation like, hey, what if your whole infrastructure goes down into a production environment? How would you react? What would be your, action plan of it, right? So those are the scenario questions that you may get, and it may be technical and non-technical. So for this particular question, you may need to get into bit of technical things as well as non-technical things, right? And it could be sometimes it could be completely non-technical stuff as well. But yeah, so googliness is, I guess, everything how you handle situations, I would say.
Is it possible if you can share an example of the, some scenario that can be asked or was asked to you? Some example so that these guys get the gist of it.
um I think I'm not allowed to share the exact questions, but
Yeah.
uh, sorry for that. But a very similar question that I just explained, right? So let's say you are, off your working hours is over, and there was something you deployed in your production environment a couple of hours back before, getting out of office, and something broke. Your whole application or whole website is down, your whole infrastructure is down, basically. How would you handle, you know a situation as such, right? And what would be your action plan? How would you try to navigate yourself with these, right? So stuff like this, I mean, you would be put into a position like this. So for example, you would first need to revert back, you need to do root cause analysis of what went wrong. And yep, yeah, a deep dive into. And for root cause analysis, you may need to get more technical. And for other stuff, like how would you handle the situation as such? So um, mitigating it with some other team, like application team and then the customer facing team, and getting on the same page with everyone and stuff like that. So these are some non-technical terms that you may need to look into. So yeah, it's better mix of both. Yeah.
And also it depends on the interviewer as well, right? Like there's no set of questions that can be asked. Anything can be asked. If it is scenario based, there can be thousands of scenarios, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Many people are asking like which type of questions you got in the interview and everything. We've already discussed this thing previously, so maybe you can watch this webinar afterwards. The recording would be there, and yeah, he has answered those questions as well. Um,
All right.
just 1 second, guys. We will wait for another 30 seconds maybe, and you guys can post like any question that you still have. Otherwise, maybe you can connect with Mayank on LinkedIn as well if you have any doubts afterwards. Yeah, we'll wait for 30 seconds, otherwise we can end the webinar. Yeah. So Balaji has asked, is there any preparation time or any set time that a student, should devote for getting into Google or any big company?
I mean, if you're a student, I would say explore as much as possible. It's not just so you have this flexibility right now, uh, you know, to put your hands around, exploring things, get your hands dirty with as much as technologies as you can, and whichever suits you the best, go forward with it. Never stick with. I mean, there were some time that I started off with few tech stack, and those were totally of peer pressures, I would say. Because all my peers were working on it, I also wanted to work on it, but it never got into my curiosity. Like, do I really want to spend more time on it? Is there anything else I may I can invest my time in? So yeah, try to explore as much as you can. For the time frame, if you're in college, explore as much as you can. You have plenty of time right now, I would say. If you are pursuing, or if you're already into IT sector, try to brush up your basic skills before getting into any interview. I mean, not just one single profile. I mean, the profile that we are talking about right now, but any profile that you would be interviewing for, brush up your basic skills. That's what they start off with, right? And if you have a good first impression, you may kick off later, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So I would like to end the webinar with this last question. Like, how is the work culture at Google? Like, apart from technical stuff and everything, what do you guys do like in your free time? And are there flexible work hours? And are you working from home from now? Like, what is it all about?
Yeah. I mean, I joined Google like mid-January, and I have not got the opportunity to visit Google's office yet. And I guess that's the best part of working in Google, meeting like-minded people into a single place and working with them is the most. And what I have read and heard is Google's food also. The cafeteria is good, which I am yet to explore. I mean, right now all onboardings and everything is being done remote only, and right now everything is smooth, I guess. Everything is, you get to know a lot of fun facts and uh, a lot of things. Actually, you get to hear a lot of people. You just sometimes you get to watch on YouTube or something, and you get the opportunity to join their live webinars and hear them talk about technologies, and that's fascinating for me, at least. That's really inspiring. And how I mean, the very much or the very interesting thing that for me with the Google onboarding is the whole onboarding process. It's very smooth and help us understand the goals and cultures of Google, and it's really inspiring. Yeah,
Yeah, I think everybody is looking forward to, going to their offices and meeting their peers and everything because this virtual phase, like, it's good, but then it has its own pros and cons, both, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Many
Yeah.
people think that work from home should be like permanent. It should be like, even if COVID is not there, everything is good. People should work from their home only.
I mean,
Yeah,
there are mixed reviews.
right. Right. So I think we've covered all the questions, Mayam. Thank you so much for, coming here and sharing your insights, your interview experience. I think it will help a lot of students who are planning to give their interviews in future. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Geeks for Geeks and Muskan, for having me here. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then we'll see you guys in the next webinar. Till then, bye bye.